It played. What happened to our intro? We're on live, Ivan. Let's see. No intro. Well, this is how live works. Good morning, Ivan. Little technical difficulties there, but how you doing?
I'm doing well, man.
How was
living my life, living la vida loca? How's your weekend so far?
La vida loca for sure.
Yeah.
Up and running quick today.
What was going on? What did you do this weekend?
Man, I was up. I couldn't sleep last night. I was up till like 2 a.m. watching Teddy Pendergrass, the R&B singer. His life.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? Have you seen that documentary?
I haven't seen the documentary. No.
He was a paraplegic and everything.
Oh boy,
pretty interesting. Yeah.
I was actually watching Pen 15 last night. It's like this quirky teenage show about like these two girls in grade school and just the experiences that they deal with being in middle age.
Being in middle age, what do you mean?
I mean, not middle school, rather. Middle school. But you know what's ironic is that the people playing the characters on the show who are supposed to be 13 years old in the 8th grade are actually, I looked it up, they're actually in their 30s.
Wow.
So it makes it even that much quirkier, if you will.
I got you.
You know what I'm saying?
And you found it totally relatable to a 15 50-year-old.
Well, I got to tell you.
I got to take that shot. That's easy.
No, I've been working a lot. And so, on Saturday evenings, I work 6 days a week. So on Saturday evenings, it's really my time to decompress. So I just stumbled upon it. Actually, you know how I stumbled upon it? It's very interesting. I was listening to a post that Gary Vee made, and he said that he loves the show. So I said, you know what? Let me check this out. And it was pretty damn good.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it was. You know Gary Vee, right?
Who's Gary Vee again?
He's this mega business entrepreneur on podcast, on multiple streams.
And what's the name of the
platforms, rather, but Instagram being one of them.
What's the name of the show again?
It's called. So it's interesting. I didn't realize this until I looked it up, but it's called Pen 15. I'm like, what does Pen 15 mean? And apparently, this is what kids used to do when they were younger. I'm probably sure that some people that are listening know what it is. But if I were to ask you, hey, do you want to be part of the Pen 15 group? Yeah. And you would say, sure. So I would write Pen 15 on your hand. But when you read Pen 15, it reads like penis.
Oh, okay.
So it's just like
a
silly joke that middle school kids do.
Wow.
So the name of the show is called Pen 15.
No, it sounds interesting. Right.
Hey, Vivette, how are you? Good morning, Vivette. How are you? Yeah, man, between that and you know what else I was doing?
What's that?
You know what else I was doing? I was watching TikTok, and apparently there's this reemergence of Teach Me How to Dougie.
Really?
TikTok. So I've been practicing my TikTok how to Dougie moves.
Okay. Wow.
And if I get good enough and feel confident enough, I'm gonna post a TikTok video of how to Dougie.
I want to see it. You know,
hey Teresa, good morning. Good morning, Clara. Good morning, Celicia.
Me having the two little girls and the little boy at that age, I'm all about the TikTok and all of that. So I'm interested in seeing your moves.
Celicia, you don't want to see my moves, Celicia? You don't want to see my Dougie? But we have an interesting guest today.
Absolutely.
I think the guest, I think everyone, oh, Celicia, you got to live a little, right? If you don't laugh, what is it all worth at the end? At least if you could get a chuckle out of it, why not? But the guest that we're going to have on today, he truly epitomizes how transformational the human spirit can be, the human experience can be. He's been through a lot, but he's persevered through life's adversities, and he's really come out on the other side of things. So he's quite an inspiration.
No, and on top of that, I think he'll show a part of what our friendship is about. He's a 10701. He's from our zip code. He grew up with us. We know him since.
Why, yo?
How long? When did you meet Roop? What grade? How old were you?
So this is the thing. Mike, Dan, not so much Dan, because Dan was in high school, but Mike, Angel, Greg, all those guys, they were my brother's peers. I was 2 years younger than them, but I would always hang out with them because I always was latching on to my older brother.
You were tagging along.
I was always tagging along. And so, over the years, especially as we became adults, we just became friends. There was no, that line wasn't there.
They blurred, yeah.
Exactly. There was a blurring.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I actually met you through your brother as well. I was in your brother's class.
I think so.
Yeah, in high school.
I remember that. I do remember that.
In high school, everybody was together, so there weren't too many lines in the groups that we were.
I know. No, it was good times, man. It was good times. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No. So he's from that group. He's from that era. He's from our we all have the same sense of humor and everything.
Yeah.
He's from all of that. But what were you gonna say?
No, so it's interesting. Before he comes on, I think that one thing that I found interesting this weekend, and I feel like we keep on revisiting this topic, but I think it's so important. I think the theme of this show could very much be learning how to learn. It could be about metacognition. How does one arrive at the beliefs that he or she has? I really find it fascinating. It may sound like semantics, but there's so much meat in that conversation because when you look at how people have strong beliefs, especially now, right? Think about everything that's going on. There's, the vaccine is now available, and of course you have the beliefs and the statements are so polarized. You have people for it, against it. You have skeptics. But what I find fascinating, most importantly, and I'm not taking a side here.
Yeah.
What I find fascinating is how people arrive at their beliefs. And sometimes I'm being facetious when I say it, but how does one gather data? How does one arrive at their beliefs? And I know that we're ecosystems. We're walking individual ecosystems that have a lot of factors that lead us to the way we believe. But it's interesting how some people, not some people, let me not say that because that sounds scathing, but it's interesting how humans, we can use a source of information that's very questionable, and we could create these strong-held, unshakable beliefs. For example, watching a YouTube video, and now all of a sudden, I'm an expert and I believe this. It doesn't have to be about vaccines. It could be anything. So the question is, I think the ultimate question is, what is the ultimate source of truth? Right? Because you can apply that to anything. Go ahead.
No. Keep going. I'm listening to you.
No. I just think, there's so much. I think that in school, okay. I think that in school while content is important, while curricula is important, right? Those things are important. You need to acquire information, at a minimal level in order to progress to the next grade. So content is important. I agree. What I think is equally important is learning, right? Learning a methodology, learning how to learn, learning how to acquire information. Because learning how to learn is what's going to allow you to sift through information that is perhaps not valid or perhaps doesn't have, that's not substantiated, that's more opinion based versus data driven. So and again, you could apply this to anything, any walk of life. You could apply it to carpentry, you could apply it to textile industry, you could apply it to medicine. Absolutely, we talk about that all the time. So yes, Alicia, research, learning how to learn. How do you arrive at your strong held, unshakable beliefs? Because you see it happening all the time. You know how I feel ashamed to say this, but sometimes I amuse myself by bantering with people on on social media platforms. I banter with people just to see how is it that they're thinking. Because the people that call other people sheep, like, oh, you're sheep, you just listen. And I'm always curious, how have you arrived at your belief that I am a sheep or he or she is a sheep? Where are you getting that information from? I just find that Celicia, I find it interesting. And anyway, on a Saturday night after a long week, sometimes I just want to amuse myself.
I mean, you said a lot there, Ivan. I think, what's the word that you used the other day? You brought to
Metacognition?
No, the one that you brought to my attention, the ad hominem. When it comes to, you're saying a few different things, because if you're taught in the school, right, and they teach you a certain thing, how do you counterbalance that? How do you separate that? That's what it is. That's not an opinion. So that's
that's
a good thought.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I think that we need to make a distinction between education and indoctrination, because I think indoctrination is when someone injects their beliefs, their dogma, into someone without that person without that person that's learning this information doing their due diligence. That it's the ultimate portrayal of what proselytizing is.
But
I try to proselytize you without you checking me.
Let me play devil's advocate here.
Go ahead.
Because me and you, we exchange, nutrition, workout, all that stuff. When we're in that process, you don't want me to question. You just want me to do. And you're like, what are you questioning? So there's a time to gather information, and then there's a separate time for the analysis of it. So
good point.
You're living a contradiction, but you're thinking something else. It's two different things. There's a time to learn, there's a time to examine, and it's hard to separate yourself from it. I think that, we are all guilty of ad hominem, of calling people names, and that's what happens when we start calling each other sheep, and we don't. And
that's a good point.
It's
I missed that point. Thank you for saying that. I wasn't connecting the dots.
Yeah, and it's and it comes from it not being information that we accept as doctrine, so it can't be correct. I'm here. I'm sorry, Ivan. I'm trying to get Rupesh on.
Go ahead. Do what you got to do. So
but
no,
so I'm multitasking.
No, I get it. I get it. Do what you got to do. But I think that, you pose a good question. And I think that those things happen concurrently. I think that you could learn. And while learning, you have to do your due diligence. I think, and it's interesting, right? We spoke about this last week, and it's a provocative topic, and we kind of went off on a tangent. But you remember that Edward Fleming quote, "In God we trust, all others must provide data."
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? What is let's break that statement down. At least my interpretation is that there's certain things, particularly religion, in which you apply blind faith. You don't question, you don't fact check, you don't look for the ultimate source of truth. You simply concede to that being the ultimate source of truth. But everything else should be data driven. So, how do we arrive at our beliefs with the vaccine? I just find, and again, I'm not taking a position. I simply want to talk about the methodology by which you arrive at your decisions. How do you know that people, I heard this, for example, people that are melanated, when upon receiving the vaccine, will have an alteration of their DNA. And apparently what I just said is circulating. And it's so easy for conspiracy theories or these weakly substantiated comments to be circulated, right? Like, it's kind of like bad information gets circulated quicker than good information. So anyway, that's how I was amusing myself over this past week.
mean, what you're touching on with what you just said, as far as the information that's out there, with the internet, it's always, but I think that it's magnified because of the internet.
I know the power of social media.
Well, information has always been from your neighborhood before the internet, what your parents knew, what your uncle knew, and there's always a democratic, information is spread. You know what you know, I know what I know. That's the way it is.
I know.
So the
question is how. The question is, right? So let me ask you, Jose. What's the difference between indoctrination and education?
Indoctrination and education. I mean, in that, aren't they just separate, like, pillars of information? They're not one and the same.
I think the fundamental difference is that with indoctrination, I'm telling you something and you're taking it as face value, as being valid, as being irrefutable, as being infallible. Whereas education, I'm teaching you. Right, think about it. When I taught for 14 years, right? Invariably, when I teach, I provide the sources of my information in order that my students could do their own due diligence.
Yeah.
So, and I think that it sounds like semantics, but it really isn't.
There's let me touch.
So that's the difference. Go ahead.
I went. I'm in the local 3 union, everything, and they have this retreat. They send you out for a weekend, all paid, everything, but they make you take a course, and it's about what you're asking, and what you're asking is critical thinking.
Yes.
Do we critically examine what we're giving? And it's a real problem, but I think it has its purpose. In order for society to function, you got to kind of suspend that. It's like when I go to your gym, you don't want me to critically think. You actually stop, don't ask, just do, put it down, put it up. And I'm like, so in order to get certain things done, we got to suspend critical thinking. And that's where the balance comes in play.
That's a great point, Jose.
Thank you.
That's a great point.
Thank you. We got Roop.
Yeah, bring him on.
Yeah, Roop is on. I know he's going to want to jump in
man,
on this. Rube, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Good
What's up,
morning.
Roop?
You had some technical difficulties, but you made it on.
Yeah. Let me just move one
You
over.
gotta,
So,
I saw you
you gotta
sipping on
fit in the
something.
screen.
What you got in that mug, Roop?
oh, just coffee, man.
Oh, okay.
I've been trying to. Jose gave me the wrong link. I hate to say it, but Jose,
That's
it's
what
all
it
your
was.
Whoa,
fault.
whoa. Where did
Gave
you
it
end up?
right off, right off the bat.
It just kept me waiting.
That's a
It
little
just kept
sus.
It
saying,
did.
you guys gonna come and come soon. And
Um,
I knew something was wrong, you know.
I'm not sure what happened there.
And
So,
then he sent me the stream and the yard separately.
It was too,
oh my God.
it's been a tough morning for me.
Yeah.
Really tough morning.
I
But you're
know.
finally on, Roop, and we're happy that you're on, man.
Yeah, man.
You got a
Roop, I'm
lot.
so happy to have you
Yep.
on, man. I really think, just preliminarily, I was telling the audience that knowing you and knowing your story, I truly think that you epitomize courage to continue. But so I definitely want you to share your story. Before you start, though, Jose was saying something. I'm not sure if you want to jump on that and then kind of transition into your story. But Jose made a very valid point. He said that critical thinking is important, but sometimes for the sake of pragmatism, we have to suspend critical thinking in order to get things done. Being a lawyer, politician to be, what are your thoughts on that?
Like what Jose said was enlightening, but also kind of dangerous because all these people, like let's look at the fascist, and all these people, they were in Germany in the 1940s. They were really 1930s and 40s. They were they were really following that philosophy of not thinking. Like my leader will think for me. I just have to keep on going, and a lot of violence and all that sort. But I think critical thinking is key because how can you really not do, especially for a democracy to work? Like there might be wrong information out there, but it's our job to sift through that information and try to find the right information. And it's really hard. I mean, like philosophers like Wittgenstein and like Nietzsche and everyone talked about the truth and what is the truth, and you can never really come to it. Like a Kierkegaard, the truth is the hardest thing to come by. But without critical thinking, it just goes down the drain, like the army. That's what they do. And the people who fight wars, and they're really
I
having a
think
war
that's a good
within themselves.
example. I think that's a good example because imagine you had an army who were all independent critical thinkers. You would never be able to accomplish a task, even the smallest of tasks. So sometimes you have to, sometimes we look down upon this, the fallacy of appeal to authority, simply do what an authority figure is telling you to do and take it at face value. But I think in order to get things done in a pragmatic way, we have to suspend that critical thinking. But critical thinking, I think, is important because it's the underbelly of democracy. Because these ideologies is what creates policy. It's what creates law. It creates behaviors that have real life implications. So I think, you could answer almost everything as it's context dependent, because in some contexts, critical thinking is critically important. Lawmaking, I think it's very important. But I think when it comes to fighting a war, you simply have to do what you're told.
It's funny because you guys, there's been a theme in my head. Do you guys watch The Mandalorian at all? The
little
Disney
bit.
thing? You okay?
I heard about it.
Well, there was this one great line. I found it to be great the other day. You know, you have the empire, the evil empire, it's fascist, and then you have the rebels, the Jedi's, and all of that. It's basically what it is. And one of the guys who used to be a soldier, the white soldier, I forget their names, stormtrooper. Now he's on the rebellion side, and he said, you know, people say they want freedom, but what they really want is order. And I found that fascinating because
Mm.
through critical thinking, like right now we have this democracy and everything, but all we want is order to be applied for the mask wearing. And these are the most liberal minded people. We want it to be organized in an orderly fashion, but it's under the guise of democracy. So it's that push and pull between those two ideas. I think at the other end of democracy, like Ivan just stated, we have laws, which is order. You're kind of suspending your liberties to an extent. Someone's got to organize it. And I just found that fascinating. I think it gets at the heart of that struggle.
I, there's a lot to be said with that. Just even in terms of human evolution, because we have to subscribe to certain fictitious narratives in order to have order. And I think when you look at evolution, that's what has allowed humans relative to other animal species to climb the food chain, because we could assemble in large numbers. Think about, and I always use this as an example. Imagine putting together 10,000 lions in the Vatican. Would you ever be able to get order? But because the human brain is able to subscribe to fictitious narratives like democracy, we could have order. We could go to Yankee Stadium and have some level of order because
well, you mean abstract, not fictitious. Abstract.
Same thing. But Roop, please, without further ado, could you please introduce yourself and just tell your story, please?
Yeah, we jumped right into it.
I know.
My name is Roop Vijayan, and I know you guys. I think I met you guys when I was 10 years old, or at least Ivan and his brother Ray. And I think the part that they would like me to mention is that part when I had this devastating car accident, had a head injury, was paralyzed. Half my body was paralyzed. I couldn't speak. My brain was all in jumbles and everything. And I spent more than a year in hospitals. First, I was in a coma. And first it was Nassau County Hospital for like more than a month. And then it was hospitals in New Jersey for 5 months. And then it was Helen Hayes Hospital in Rockland County. And then I went to India. Well, I spent some time in Cornell Medical Center. And when I got out of it, I mean, it was bad. Right at the time I got into the accident was when I was a senior, February 29th of 1992. And all my friends were going to college or doing, getting on in life and everything. And it just gets you into this acute depression because I kept on thinking, and my parents told me that I would totally 100% improve. And I still didn't have my right hand, and that's my dominant hand. But anyway, I went to India, stayed there for 4 months, getting treatment, and came back. And I just, there was nothing. I mean, I was kind of determined to, even in a sort of cruel way, to quote unquote succeed, I guess. I went to WCC and Westchester Community College, spent over a year and a half there, and I just loved it. I just loved the work I was doing. I went to Columbia after that, but
Well, you graduated summa cum laude from WCC, right? Didn't
um,
you graduate with high honors and then you went to
yeah,
Columbia? I
yeah.
remember that. So that's a big part that you left out.
I was even in the honors program, and I had the first Sophia B. Bellis scholarship, or I had a 3.95 average or something, taking honors classes, and yeah, and then I moved on to anyway, I graduated from NYU, and then I went to the Peace Corps, which was
You
another
graduated
hard.
from NY. So you graduated Columbia with your undergrad, with your BS.
No, I transferred after my first year, and that was all to do with after my first semester, and it was all to do with it was only 2 years out of maybe 3 years out of a head injury. I had a lot of things going on, um, and what I saw when I was in Columbia was that to navigate even in the buildings, in those old buildings, it everyone is on the right side. Well, my right side, my arm is not working, my hand is not working, I can't hold the railing, and stuff like that. And NYU, especially the business school, was a whole new facility. It had elevators and everything like that. So I graduated NYU in 3 semesters, and I joined the Peace Corps. um, so I went to Ghana, and again, it was complicated, and the fact is that, like, I just started realizing, like, about maybe 5 years ago and everything, like, I don't have to fit into this narrative, or this image of a perfect normal individual. Like, I am disabled, and I'm not, going to try. And that's what made my the first, I don't know, like 15 years after the accident a little more difficult than it needed to be, because I was always trying to fit in. And then there was a narrative like, you know, you're not supposed to show your disability. You're supposed to be strong, and things like that. But I'm just glad for all these movements that came in, be Black Lives Matters and Me Too and disability rights, and all these things are so explosive, and change the way you really think. It's like a paradigm shift.
So
Where did you
you
go to law school, Ru? I'm sorry.
Um, Cardozo, Yeshiva University, but it's in below 14th Street and Fifth Avenue, and
so
yeah, and
Rupert, you would say that you see a day to day difference in attitudes and everything because of the movements and all that.
I
You
I
see the
do.
effects.
I I live in the suburbs now,
Mm-hmm.
and um, on one hand, around the time we moved in, this is only 5 miles from where I used to live, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my wife and I were walking. It was summer, and this African American dude, he was waving at me from down the street. Then I approached him, shook his hand. He's from Africa, and he was like, "Brother, brother, you're here!" Like, like, it's so weird. And it was so. I think me and him and another Indian American lady are probably the only people of color around the area. And in our neighborhood and in surrounding neighborhoods, I guess. And
Wow.
but on the other hand, this is a liberal part of the
Yeah.
county,
Mm-hmm.
and you see Black Lives Matters flags everywhere, signs everywhere, and it had a big parade, like a big showing in the main street where it was a Black Lives Matter, um, like, it wasn't a parade, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was like, everything, it changes, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, it's so hard to say, but I know, especially for my mind, it because it seems like within the last, I remember when Hillary Clinton was running and there was Black Lives Matters activists and everything getting on her um, wherever she was, and I used to think Black Lives Matters, all life matters. But then they had to like teach me, and
Yeah,
I'm a liberal sort of a
yeah,
guy, you know. I'm
yeah.
a leftist, even left a liberal, and so
No, but
it was
you know that
it
that's interesting because we sit on the internet, we have debates, we do all these things, but it's um it's fascinating to see how it and you take it for granted how it affects our everyday lives. It does affect people's attitudes in society, and you see it on both sides, but you take it for granted. I mean, if you want to call Trump a racist or whatever, but what that is what it is. But I'm speaking to the fact that his supporters do feel more empowered when
yeah.
he's in power, and of course, vice versa. So there are true day to day things that affect our experiences. I think we take that for granted when we sit here and we debate ideology and all of that. It's kind of on the internet, but it does go on to the street. At least for myself, I kind of overlook that part of it.
Yeah, yeah. Like history doesn't go linear. There's going to be a lot of hiccups here and there. And the thing is that when it does hiccup, we're the ones who were hurt.
Yeah, yeah,
I just love reading about the Russian Revolution and the Russian Civil War because the Tsar was such a evil kind of person. Like he thought he absolutely ruled over people, and the revolutionaries, they had such ideals, and they got their revolution, and then it was such a long ordeal going through that civil war when the brutality of the peasants, of these people, of the Russian Jews, and everything showed. So it's hard. It's when you bring change, there's a lot of um, things. There's a lot of underlying things that explodes out, and people like their privileges,
you
and
know what's
people have
wild?
to give those privileges up.
And to that same point, what's wild? I was watching something last night on the Cosmos, and how something in Russia affected the U.S. program and all that stuff. But it's also wild how getting to that point, how these things affect our day to day. That we study these places and times and people, but they're fully functional. They're these societies that to us we look at and we're like, a SAR. It seems like it should just fall apart on itself, but there's people that are adding to that order and that society, and they function. There's a lot of people that benefit from it in those systems. And I think for myself, I also take that for granted. Like it shouldn't last 20, 30, 40 years, but these things, these
Yeah,
regimes, these systems, they go on for a long time. Um, it's wild.
yeah, yeah. It is. It is.
But Rupesh, I wanted to get back to. I was watching the Teddy. I've been watching TV yesterday, and I was watching the Teddy Pendergrass, the R&B singer, and he got into a car accident, and his spine broke, and he ended up not being able to walk. And the documentary goes through. Um, he went into a depression like you described. Um, Part of our show with Courage to Continue is kind of talking about too, like strategies. How did you navigate through that? I mean, those first few years, like now you're at the other side of it, but I know that you said you were trying to fit a narrative, so that probably drove you as well. But
Yeah, yeah. You're
was
right.
that
That kind of drove me too. Um, there was a type of attitude that I remember when I was in Helen Hayes. I remember there was a kid. Well, he was like 3 years younger than me, and he had Lyme's disease, and it affected him so much that he would hear sounds. He had have like these headphones. He couldn't walk or anything, and there was also this elderly patient, and he totally gave up. The kid with the Lyme's disease totally gave up, or he was just a kid, I guess. You know, it was hard, and. I remember him, and this lady was a nice lady. She was talking to both of us, but more to him. And she was telling him that you have to do it in spite. You have to do it in spite of all these people. And that's the kind of feeling I had when I first got out of, like I'm gonna do it in spite. I'm gonna do it. Fuck all the people. Sorry about saying that, but
Yeah,
and
that's
that worked for a while. But the thing is that, and anger is it's motivator, and it also provides your body with all these like it's like, almost like a food, like a fire burning, like a fast burning charcoal or something. And that, but it only brings you up for a while. And even now, I don't really think I'm just living life. I don't think I'm there, like a journey's end yet. I don't think I'll ever will be. And now I'm trying to wash away that anger and that inspired philosophy that really took a hold of me. And yeah.
You know what's interesting? I agree. When we go through something, I don't think there's an end point. I think it's an evolving thought process that you go through, and in with regards to how you reconcile adversity. It doesn't. There's no end date. I think you'll always be processing this to some extent. I think we all do that. That's how trauma affects us. But thinking about the human experience, I think most could agree that what we want is health, wealth, love, and happiness. Those are like archetypal traits of our human existence. And I think when I look at you and I listen to your story, you've accomplished that. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of your accomplishments are your pursuit to reacquiring this level of self-efficacy. You indicated that you felt like you didn't have control of your body, your mind was all over the place, you didn't have control over, the environment wasn't suitable to you, but now you've accomplished so much, NYU, Columbia, Yeshiva, Peace Corps, if I'm not mistaken, you're running for office now. So all these things that you've done, how has that affected the way you see yourself in terms of self-efficacy now? Meaning, like, do you feel like you have control over your environment and your life and your existence now because of all of your accomplishments?
That's a good question. On one hand, I'm not running for office. I'm interviewing for a judgeship. Like it's oh no,
similar.
Yeah, it's a similar thing, and
Don't downplay
ultimately, ultimately the governor will select, and hopefully I get to that point. But if I don't, I don't. And I did so. I just feel like. But the thing is that, to what you were saying, that I was the last interview I did, and I kind of felt like I bombed on all the interviews. There's like 12 people from an organization. They all looking for something, and I just was talking to my wife, and I was saying, like, sometimes I don't know why I feel so bad, because I felt bad. Um, why, when I have all these accomplishments, I mean, I'm a lucky guy. I don't believe that God said, you're going to be saved, Roop, pull me out, and like I'm a new Moses or anything like that. My head injury happened a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. It didn't really affect cognitive abilities, or but later on it didn't really affect. And I'm fortunate, just like all these people are fortunate. And I shouldn't. I mean, look, I'm talking to you guys. You guys are talking to me. We're sitting in our homes, and out there's a couple of UPS trucks and Amazon trucks, and people driving, people trying to put food on the table, and people who don't even have jobs. And we're all lucky. And in a way, my accomplishments, it makes me feel good, because back then I remember when I started WCC the first semester, I was not even thinking about it, NYU. Then second semester I remember telling my mom, I think I can make it to NYU. you know I think my brain, cognitively is functioning all right. And then it was Columbia, and then it was Columbia and Georgetown. It just kept on rising, and um, and and all the things I did. But even with those accomplishments, you still feel bad sometimes.
Do you think that this is interesting? And I think this doesn't just apply to you, but I think the more signatures of a minority that we have, right? Being a person of color, you described yourself as being disabled. The more signatures of those minority labels that we have, the more likely we are to have imposter syndrome, where we don't think that we're good enough despite our accomplishments. And do you think, because of how you see yourself in the context of your reality, you feel that you're not deserving of what you've accomplished?
Um, I never really thought of that. I mean, I thought of, what I I thought of that towards other people, but in my own head, I just never really, I sometimes I blame my accident for, hey, I couldn't do this, I couldn't go, bike riding with my friends, or I couldn't do this, when there's so much that was accomplished. But I don't know. I got to think about that more, because I can see how they can, because in reality, it is a true thing. It is. I I mean, also I'm Indian American, and the things that Indian Americans are almost like we're almost like a wedge piece. You know, we come in between, so that we can look at the other people of color and say, hey, why can't you do it? Even though we are given the chances, and we came here with education. It wasn't America that gave us the. I mean, my mother had education she got in India, and then there was a lot that started off like that. It's not like the same thing as the Puerto Rican experience or the Dominican experience, or the African American experience. And I truly marvel. I don't know. Sometimes, like people always used to call me a wannabe something. Like I remember Indian kids used to call me a wannabe Puerto Rican, because all my friends were Puerto Rican. And then it was, because I would always get fascinated with all these other things going on, and my culture seemed so boring. Now having lived with a
It,
white wife for 17 years.
Now it's not as
it's
boring.
not Puerto Rican. It's hip hop culture.
Yeah,
It's the cool culture.
yeah. It's so creative, and even with the Ireland, I remember when I went to Dublin like long time ago, and I was just marveled by the way these people are. The Irish were so creative. Well, they got like uh, they were suppressed too, and all these creative juices are flowing.
Yeah. One thing I want to talk about, I think it's, you know, provocative topics are good. I think, but it gets the mind going. It's provocative. But I think what's worthy of talking about from your perspective, from the life that you've lived and kind of what you do, you were a criminal lawyer. You're a criminal lawyer, right? Or are you still practicing in that capacity? Or,
No,
but you were
yeah,
a criminal
from
lawyer.
yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about your experience as a criminal lawyer and um, your kind of take on Black Lives Matter. Um, Initially, you said you didn't quite get it because all lives matter, and in the context of human existence, absolutely, all lives matters. But in the context of the numbers that you may have seen, or just your anecdotal experiences of working with people, Black and brown people, do you think that there is a disparity in terms of how they're criminalized, how they're sentenced, how they're dealt with by police? And what is your take on Black Lives Matter after being a criminal lawyer?
Oh, totally. I mean, we had a mayor here back then, who was who whose tactic was just to, well, first of all, shine like stadium lights on some of these neighborhoods, right? Who some people really wanted that, who lived there, because they had a lot of drug dealing, and it was a really um, a quote unquote bad neighborhood. But there was also, and there was a lot of arrests going on. There's people that got arrested like 30 times, no convictions, no, not even like just let go by the police, not even charged with anything. But the thing is, when you get arrested more than once and everything, you go into the Maryland judiciary case search, which all employers in Maryland do. Then you have this arrest record, even though there's no conviction. And well, my courthouse was right in the middle of. It was only about 2 miles from where I lived, but Baltimore is pretty. It's really a segregated place. Everything, and 2 miles from there, there's Roland Park, which was the first place to put this modern segregation into place in America. And but yeah, the way they were charged, the way they were treated, it only I would be in court like 5 days a week. Like I really didn't have time to process all that was happening. But yeah, with the well, first of all, these are poor Americans. These are really poor African Americans, and they have to have find a way to live, and they have tough jobs. The bus system in Baltimore is really truly bad. You know, it's hard even to getting to work. You get back, and police is hounding you. You get to jail. I mean, you're put in jail. You get out. You go to court, and you maybe there's a lot of plea deals being offered. Maybe your attorney will recommend a plea deal. And there's this constant, just a circular pattern of injustice happening, even in a place where they're supposed to get justice.
I heard a description and it resonated with me. But imagine being in a cancer rally, right? And in a cancer rally, let's say for breast cancer, right? And everyone is demonstrating their support for breast cancer awareness and screenings, prevention, etc. And then someone walks into the rally and says, "How about prostate cancer? Prostate cancer matters too." It's kind of silly. No one is ignoring or not acknowledging the significance that prostate cancer has. But, and forgive me for saying this, but if breast cancer is more prevalent and is taking more lives and it's causing more morbidity, then certainly it's worth raising attention to that specific type of cancer, despite the fact that there are a myriad of other cancers. Simply saying that we need to raise awareness for breast cancer doesn't take away from the importance of the other type of cancers. We're just acknowledging that breast cancer prevalence is high. And in an analogous way, that's how I see Black Lives Matter. Of course, all lives matter. Absolutely. It's needless to say. Human existence is precious. But when you look at statistics, and I know statistics can get very skewed, very much skewed. But when you look at statistics, and if in fact you could deduce that the statistics doesn't lend themselves well to the Black experience in America, then one could start seeing why Black lives does in fact matter. Do you see it like that? Like, do you see it like, like when you look at the statistics, in terms of the disparity of how Blacks are criminalized for even small crimes, do you recognize that? Do you recognize why Black Lives Matter? Is that why you're a big proponent of it, or is it because of just your personal experiences in Baltimore, or is it a combination of everything?
Yeah, it's probably a combination of everything. But it was like when I first, like in 2013 or 14, when I first learned that some of the acts passed by FDR excluded Black Americans, even Black Americans coming from the war, and I was floored because I thought I'd call myself like an amateur history buff and everything, and then all these books started coming out, then how the African American population was just left behind on purpose and not given mortgages, where they would have to acquire a house in a different way, where the school system got crowded because they would have to put in more people living under the same roof because they didn't have the mortgage system where the money you put down, it's really you own something, and things like that. That's true injustice. There's no. And then there's another thing. Like around when Me Too started, and before that, there was these episodes coming from India, like a lot of women going to protest because of rape. And I used to think, oh my God, India is filled with the rape culture. America is filled with rape culture. It's everywhere. Like everywhere I see, like it's too much to explain, but it's really like, and it's kind of sad because we just like ignored, and this is another thing, we just ignored all the poor in our population and in the American population. We don't even, they're invisible. We don't even, we are speaking about democracy and everything. And what about the poor? You know, the LBJ administration kind of talked about it, but nobody has. Not Obama, not anyone.
They're not talking about it. And you made a point relating to that. I have a question for you. What does the modern segregation look like? What you said that Baltimore, Rollins Park. What is that modern segregation? How does that look? I'm not familiar with that.
Well, I just meant that it wasn't so pronounced. Like it's not a government segregated.
It's not written into the law. It's
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 it
more
is
nuances. Yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah. It's almost
I
like
got you.
Yonkers
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
You
Yeah.
know, when the Yonkers had the
yeah,
housing
yeah,
the case and Yonkers with the Southwest Yonkers. There was Yonkers, and then there was Southwest Yonkers,
yeah,
where we grew up.
yeah,
You know, and
Shitty
then
area.
everyone knew Southwest Yonkers wasn't getting the resources. School 10 getting resources. I mean, it didn't
yeah.
even have walls. Um, and
Yeah.
then go up to like Tuckahoe, like Tuckahoe Road or the high schools around there, and it was hard to find a person of color. They had the resources, and if if that's happening, there has to be some involvement by the government.
Yeah, and
And
and and and that's a good point because when you think about, they made us the poor kind of integrate with the busing and all that. And you look at Gorton, the high school that we went to, and I saw a video from back then, and from our year, from like 1993, and the groups of people that were friends, there weren't any colors. There were Chinese kids hanging out with
yeah,
black kids. It was nothing. There were Arabic kids. Everybody was just. It was
yeah,
just a school. I mean, come recess, people kind of separate a little bit, but for the most part, I don't want to go as far as saying that the integration worked, but it we were integrated. It was every group. I mean, look at this panel. You're Indian, Dominican, Puerto Rican. It's all of color,
yeah.
but yeah, no, it was truly diverse. It does the busing did that.
That
There,
that really doesn't exist in Baltimore. In Baltimore, there's really black and there's white.
Mm,
Right. It's black majority city, like I don't know, I guess like 53% probably black. And now, within the last 5, 10 years, there's Central American population that's coming in. That's my wife is a social worker that work in Baltimore City Public Schools. So her school, it's like over 80% Hispanic, and that's like really unheard of in Baltimore.
wow.
And so I really miss those days when we were all together, like
Yeah.
we were all. So it was working, and
Yeah.
the busing system worked because right before that, I still remember the time when Yonkers High School was supposed to be like the Southwest Yonkers' high school. It was supposed to be like the worst school.
Yeah.
Everything bad going on with Yonkers High School.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
I know. I wanted to read a couple of comments because, believe it or not, time has flown.
Wow.
I know it's already an hour. Keyshawn Wilson, health, wealth. Yes, I had mentioned health, wealth, love, and happiness. Those are archetypal human pursuits, I would say. Dion Brown, I feel the same way. I'm currently interviewing now and had an exhausting interview last week with one of the retailers you just mentioned. I have several accomplishments within my career, but still did did not do well to showcase my talents in my own head, and it's fueling me to start my own and chase freedom instead of security. It's pretty interesting. I think a lot of us get in our heads. I think we carry. I think the biggest burden that most people carry are the thoughts that are within our heads. I'm not saying that reality doesn't strike us hard sometimes, but I think some of the biggest burdens are the things that we imagine. I
You know,
think that's what makes humans so special.
yeah. I hope you don't mind, like, right before I got on your show, a half an hour before, I ran across this quote by yesterday was Elisa Milano's 48th
Oh
birthday,
yeah.
Oh,
and
shoot. I
I
remember
really
her.
like I don't know how I think that's like an inspirational um a quote or comment she had. Is there any way you can put that on the screen? I don't know.
Let me see if I can find it. Let me see.
What did she say?
And
She
well,
was from Silver Spoons, right? Wait, was it?
No, who's the
No.
boss?
Who's the boss?
Yeah.
Who's the boss? Who's the boss?
yeah, and she said, all right,
Let me see.
no man,
Alyssa Milano. I used to have a crush on her when I was like,
Ah,
I
who
think
did it?
everybody did.
Let me see if I find it. I'm looking
yeah,
for a quote now.
and it's with her. All right, all right, she has a picture of herself, and she's saying, "This is 48. No filter, no makeup, just my skin that I've become super comfortable in. My body makes crackling noises when I walk. My daughter asked me the other day why my butt is so jiggly. Sometimes I forget things. I'm tired of life. I'm tired all the time. But overall, I'm just grateful for this life, my life. If someone told me that for the next life, I get to choose who I come back as, I'll choose me again. Even with the heartache I've endured, like Kitasugi, I don't know what that is. I've been broken open and mended and broken once more. I marvel at our capacity to heal. You have that superpower too. We are all resilient. This resilience is often taken advantage of by too many friends, bosses, kids, our own government, even. Buck up, pull yourself together, up by your bootstraps. You're fine, maybe, but it's okay not to be. True freedom is not wearing a mask and going to the bar. True freedom is one good paying job with a livable wage, and that affords you time to spend time well with your family without worrying about putting food on the table. That's my birthday wish, that we will live in a country that understands that providing programs for people in times of need is their fiduciary duty, and that there might be a day that we are truly free, free of worry, free of stress, free of eviction, free of fear of how to feed our children. That's real freedom. The flag waving and gun toting and refusing to wear a mask to keep others safe. That's not freedom. It's pageantry. So my birthday wish is true freedom for you and you and you. And but the thing is, except for that little parts about what Trump tried to pull in, because he's going away, and hopefully this COVID thing is going away too. He's going to be there, but she said a lot of things that just got me psyched up this morning, and truly I felt it because I feel the same way. Um,
I you know I don't I forgot where I read this, but um, despair. We're resilient enough to persevere despair. So when bad shit happens, the human spirit is strong enough to continue forging forward. But what's interesting is that um, so we're strong enough to persevere despair, but when it comes to complacency, um, we're never quite we're never quite happy enough to achieve this ultimate happiness. We're always chasing the next thing. And
yeah.
we have to recognize that because that's what has allowed humans to persevere 300,000 years, right? We go through crises, but yet we continue living. We don't stop living. But at the same time, we get in our heads sometimes and we don't allow ourselves to achieve true optimal happiness. And one could argue that that is part of our survival mechanism, because if we're truly, truly happy, we wouldn't continue. Like, think about technology. Things wouldn't continue getting better and better and better and better, right? Faster, more efficient. An age where robots may at some point take over, an age where we're developing vaccines for disease. That's provocative, but we're always learning and getting better. And if we were complacent, those things wouldn't happen. And so I marvel at that, because there's a part of us that's just intrinsic to all of us that allows us to continue getting through, but never quite getting too happy. And I think sometimes if we could recognize that, this archetypal trait that we all have, then maybe we could better understand why sometimes we don't think the way Alyssa Milano described her life experience to be, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you said it right. But like, it's so simple with the meditation. It's so difficult too, and it really helps you like see the fact that you can have all these accomplishments but still be not happy, because you're chasing that whatever you're chasing, which you think will make you happy. It's almost like with me and getting like this new Amazon, like getting like this new book. I can't wait till it comes, and when it comes, open it, and then like 2 seconds later, I feel like, like
you got to get another one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think at least Alyssa Milano. Yeah, I remember everyone liked her. Everyone probably still does, but now she seems like she seems to have got it. And now she can fall out of it again, but get it again. Like she's saying that this is life, and and to live life, it's like living in the moment instead of chasing something or being anxious. And that's what it really is, anxiety that they're just keeping us. um and another thing is like, I've been thinking, these electronics and everything, like the way we communicate, mean like the way we all got in touch again, in the beginning of the pandemic. That's all great. I mean, it's the greatest. But
Yeah.
there is so many poor, I mean, miserable people who I don't mean miserable people, but their lives are miserable in all these countries. And even in America, people going starving. Like before the pandemic, if you would tell people, some people won't believe you, because we have so much food. And there's people starving in America, and in Africa, and with all these gadgets. I mean, which ones are truly useful for us? As humanity, like which will um, lift people from this poverty, and all people, not only in America, but in the world.
Well,
Um,
with that point, I saw a thing, and I've been seeing people put posts as saying, if you're hungry, text me or whatever. It's an ongoing post that people just copy and paste, but there is, you can see how that, there's validity to that. I mean, the prices of food and everything during the pandemic, people losing their jobs. There's something broken where even with the abundance of what we have in this first world, there's I was listening to a podcast the other day about a lady who has it's on the TED program. She has a master's. She went to Harvard, everything, and at 55, she lost her job, and she was, I'm exaggerating, but eating cat food, and no one in her circle would ever see that or perceive that she would be in that situation with everything that she accomplished. But there's a real break in our system where we think because of the abundance, we think because of the technology, the way that we're able to connect, that somehow some of these ills to society are eradicated, and they exist, and they exist at all levels. We have to we got to figure out ways to address those things specifically and work at them. Like you said, there's been a real miss in the presidents throughout, no matter what party, in speaking to poverty. It seems like poverty is growing and growing because it's not being looked at. I'm going to get into political things. The divide between the rich and the poor and all of that. It's adding to the problem, and no one is really examining it. And now to tie it back into what you said, with the Alyssa Milano comment, in spite of all of these things, I think that what she's saying is you got to get to a point where you have to have the freedom to accept yourself and be accepted. We are who we are. She had no filter. She's like, this is what it is. This is what I bring to the world. Yeah. And it's and in trying to chase narratives, like what Mike just said, we sometimes put on a cloak. We try to chase a narrative, and we lose sight that it's okay being who we are. It should be okay. We shouldn't be controlled by these things. And I want to bring that back because you said something in the private text that we had, Rupesh, and you touched on it a little bit. But a lot of what fueled you was, I would say, for argument's sake, what I got out of it is anger. And anger is a quick boast. It's like sugar. It's only going to last so long. Yeah. So you had to come up with different mechanisms, and you kind of spoke to a little bit meditation. Is that what kind of counterbalanced your anger, and do you use that as a drive now, or am I making a connection there that isn't there? Well, how has meditation helped you through the process?
I guess that it was my own way of handling anxiety. Okay. The thing is that just always looking over the next corner is not going to help me with my life when I'm living, with my wife, with my kids and everything, because kids don't see that. They come born thinking about the present moment and stuff like that. And there's so much things you miss if you don't really, if you're not in tune with that. And even though I when my kids were little, I would spend a lot of time with them. I mean, my wife will make sure that she will, but that I will. But she used to say, like, Rube, you never seem happy to be with your family. You're always looking around the next corner. And in the beginning, I couldn't see that because I couldn't, I thought all people lived like that. But the thing is that they don't. I mean, it doesn't even really matter what all people are doing. But the thing is that for you to be happy, I mean, truly happy. And that means like being truly sad when you're sad, being happy when you're happy, like Alyssa Milano was saying. Yeah. But you have to stop that looking around the corner. And because, like, I don't know if you guys...
Would you say, it's interesting. I hear what you're saying. And I Mike is chiming in, and I appreciate what Mike has to say. Seems like progress isn't always progress if we're still chasing a carrot. True contentment abandons the systemic illusions of happy. And then he writes here, on anger as motivation, when we cannot be fed, what did he say? What we need, we feed ourselves what we can find. But, it's interesting because, like, there are certain human-based behaviors that we have, right? And I think chasing the carrot is one of them because, like I was referring to earlier, if we were to simply become complacent, we wouldn't mobilize ourselves as a human species. I'm just tied into what Roop said. So looking around the corner is something that we kind of still need, but and I'm going to go back to the saying we always say, the dose makes a poison. Maybe not too much of it. Maybe we shouldn't spend 80% of our time looking around the corner. We should immerse ourselves in the now, in the present. But you can't ignore or you can't deny the fact that we do need some forward thinking in order to continue making ourselves better. And that's kind of the theme of this show, is that in order to have this metamorphosis in life, when we go through adversity, we have to have some level of forward thinking. So I don't want to demonize forward thinking. Some forward thinking is necessary. I think too much of it is no good. So, and I think and we could say this about anything. A glass of water is good for you, but if I gave you 3 gallons to drink in an hour, most people would die of hyponatremia. So when it but you get the point. I think, yes, we need to look around the corner, but we can't be spending all of our time because we miss the present moment. And that's how I reconcile that's what Mike is saying and what Roop is saying.
And that's what Clara just said. We are so preoccupied. Well, we don't have, and tomorrow that we miss the richness and beauty that being present in the moment brings. But I think that, I think it's important that you clarified that, you made the distinction, not a clarification, but you made the distinction. But I think that Rupesh is actually, I'm speaking for Rupesh, but I think it's when you just become too preoccupied with the future that you got to get that meditation in order to relieve that anxiety because you're not being present. I think that's when you overdo it. He's speaking to the situation where you're overly consumed with what's next.
I think the big problem is thinking about the future, but in an anxious way. There's a saying that always resonated with me. It's worrying is like praying to the devil, because you're perseverating about how bad things could happen, but you don't know if they're actually going to happen. I kind of grew up like that. My mother was a big worry worm. I love her. I love my mom. I love her. But, I think I inherited some of those things, some of those traits where she was a constant worry and thinking about what may happen. And you know what's interesting? Check this out. Her worries never manifested themselves because we always had food on the table. We always had a roof over our heads. We always had clothes. And so her worries, while they were real to her, they never really manifested itself. So worrying, and it's interesting because while it motivated her to get up and get going and work hard, at the same time, did it compromise her experience living through those ages, living through that time? Did she have less of a content spirit constantly worrying? But at the same token, if she didn't worry, would she have gotten up at 5:30 in the morning to get down to Wall Street to work, to come back to do part-time work in Yonkers? You know what I mean?
Ivan, and you guys, we all grew up in 10701. Her worry was due, like we grew up like in the Serengeti, like anything. We're lucky we made it out of there alive. So there was cause for her worry. There was a lot going on. But
we were latchkey kids.
Was it at was something lost? Perhaps, but there was, and I'm not trying to play counterpoint here with you, but just to say that there was a lot going on when we were growing up. We're almost like lucky to be here with some of the stories that we say in the group. Lucky we didn't get molested.
I was going to ask you. This is the longest show that we've had. I think Roop sparks this level of
we didn't even get into
cerebral thinking. I know. We're going to have him on again.
I think Jose is at fault for giving me the wrong link.
Oh, man.
So I started off the show talking about like the things that we were doing over the weekend. The things that I was doing over the weekend, since I only get like a day and a half to really decompress. And one of the things that I was doing was I was learning this new dance move called How to Dougie. So when I get good enough and confident enough, like Alyssa Milano said, I'm just going to show it. I'm going to show it to the world. Because Roop was a big dancing aficionado back in the days.
Yeah. um, and for what you were saying about your mom wearing, and my mom too, my mom and dad, like, and it all goes down to, like we as Indians were like a colonized people. Even though the part of India I'm from, it was just like one of the princely states, meaning that the British just sent an advisory there, but they stole everything they could, and it was a worry. It was my grandmother worried, still worries, and I meet all these people who have been through the same kind of experience of moving countries to escape this and that. They all have this. Some have depression, but they get through it. But there's somehow and like this hyper anxiety, and you can't just leave it out. Also, traumatic events and everything affect generations, and you were saying, Ivan, about you think you might have got your mother's worry.
Oh yeah, there's
but-
a good book by this guy named Kalk. It's called How the Body Keeps Score, and he talks about how traumatic experiences manifest themselves in the body and how people become hypersensitized, and they still kind of, even though the trauma may have been a long time ago, it still resurfaces when placed in a certain environment or certain context. So thinking about my own mother and her experiences and her traumatic events and how that carried into my life, and how when those contextual variables show themselves to me, I too get worried. So it's interesting how the body remembers trauma and how we could kind of continue to viciously transfer these thought processes or this way of being onto our children and other generations. So a lot of it requires metacognition. Like, we have to be ultra aware of how we think and how we arrive at our biases, how we arrived at our anxieties, in order we could slowly kind of dismantle this process that we have of being constant worriers. And that's what the book talks about. The book really highlights the importance of meditation and just, having this calmness of life, and just really immersing yourself in the now and being present by going out for walks and looking at the sun and looking at trees and getting your feet on the grass, so that you're getting tactile information about what's happening right now, and you're not perseverating about what may happen or what happened in the past. But it's interesting how neuroscience and all of these things that we're talking about works together.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like Buddhist psychology, I mean, they were talking about this like 2,000 years ago, and probably wasn't only Buddhists who were talking about this. Other people were talking about this, in China and in Iran and all these places. So people knew, and back then, it seems to me, they didn't have all the stressors like now, but they still needed it.
It's crazy.
It's a human experience. I mean,
yeah,
that's what it's about. But I mean, we're going on an hour and a half. It was a great conversation, Roop. A lot of information. You're gonna have to come back on at some point. We're gonna have like bells and whistles and everything at some day. And you got to come back on and share more.
I love talking to you guys, man. I love it.
Everyone wants to learn how to Dougie. So, on that note, Ivan, you got anything you want to add before we close out?
Man, Roop, it was a pleasure to have you here, man. You have a hell of a story. I think you should probably write a book, man. You have a hell of a story. I think you'd inspire so many people. I hope that you inspired anybody listening today, because it really highlights how transformative the human experience could be. We could be at our lowest, and we could kind of persevere these hardships and get to a point where we're looking back and we could reconcile it all, all the things that happened to us, and be at a better place mentally. And I think that's what your story highlights, that you're at a better place, even though at one point in your life you were in a dark place. But I think I want to share you for sharing your story. I want to thank you for sharing your story. And I think that it's a powerful one. And if you ever want to come back, we definitely should have you come back and try to coordinate that.
Oh, yeah. I love it. I love you guys.
All right. Thank you, guys. See you next week.
Rube, stay on.